This is Adam Lightman Bailey, and you are listening to the Real Takk Podcast.
This is Jennifer Rodarte with Compass, and you're listening to the Real Takk Podcast.
Hey, this is Lane Johnson representing Compass in Aspen, and you are listening to the Real Takk Podcast.
Hello, this is Steve, and we're with Weidler Brothers of Compass in the DC metro area, and you're listening to the Real Takk Podcast.
This is Naomi Klein representing the Compass office in Beverly Hills, and you're listening to the Real Takk Podcast.
What up, everybody? This is Chef Jack Harris of the Takk Team Podcast.
This is Jade with the Jessica Northrup team from Denver, Colorado, and you are listening to the Real Takk Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Real Takk. I've always appreciated your loyalty. We've surpassed 2,100 downloads and streams since I've launched this podcast in September. So thank you for being a loyal subscriber and listener. Today, I am extremely excited to introduce our founder of Philly Compass. Margaux Pelegrin entered the industry in 2005. She was born and raised in Ritten House Square. She attended the University of Maryland, go Terps, and she is currently one of the leading producers of Philly. Her team transacts about $67 million annually, and in 2008, she transacted $72 million. You may follow her on Instagram at On the Square Real Estate. Again, that's at On the Square Real Estate, and her personal Instagram, Margaux, at Margaux Pelegrin. Her spelling is actually at MargauxPelegrin. So it's Margaux Pelegrin. So Margaux, thank you for joining and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time, certainly during this unusual lockdown period. Why don't you introduce to the listeners a little bit about yourself and who you are and how you got into the business, and also, why you joined Compass.
Yeah, absolutely. So my story goes back because my mother has been a real estate agent since I was born. So I grew up in the business, and then always said I would never do real estate, never sell real estate. I would see my mom on the phone all the time. She's like, yeah, that's not for me.
She's always working.
Right? Exactly. After I graduated from the University of Maryland, which is actually where I met my husband, I worked in DC for 2 years as a legal assistant, thinking that I wanted to go the law school route. And when I realized it wasn't for me, I was talking to my mom. We wanted to get back to Philly, and she, was needing some help with real estate and was like, what do you think? Like, would you want to try it? And at the time I was 24. So I kind of was like, okay, yeah, sure. I'll get my license. And if I hate it, I'm 24. So I pivot, right?
Always.
So got my license and that was the beginning of the story, right? We became partners. My mom was always an individual agent. She had an assistant here or there, but usually like a high schooler who would just help her with some paperwork.
Sure.
So bringing on a partner was a big deal for her. And then over the years, I grew our team. I really enjoyed the aspect of the business side of real estate in addition to just the selling, and grew our team. We now have 10 agents on our team, and then two full-time assistants.
Great. And at what juncture did you realize that real estate was a good fit for you, and this was a business that you wanted to be in long term?
Yeah, I think that anybody who survived 2008, 2009 in this industry,
sure.
And still kept going, I think that was a big, milestone. But for me, it's always been that every day is different, and the challenges in real estate are things that I really enjoy. While they can be stressful at times, I find that getting through a challenging time, like right now, to me is it's like a puzzle, and I like puzzles. So getting whether it's a difficult transaction or it's a pandemic, I think that real estate's really cool in the sense that you can use what you have and be creative as you want, and still succeed.
Gotcha. For our listeners that aren't totally familiar with the Philly market, could you just give me maybe like a 2-minute breakdown of, what what the neighborhoods are, and maybe where's more popular, where are the price points for those neighborhoods, what's popular right now before COVID, what was popular, before COVID within the last 12 months, and just kind of a general feel just so that listeners can get a better sense of how that market works.
Yeah. So what's really unique about Philadelphia as a downtown area, and just for our listeners, there is the Philadelphia area and the greater Philadelphia area region. I am exclusively a city agent. So that is, where I live and where I love. But as far as the city goes, what's really unique about it is that it blends your commercial and residential seamlessly. So our center city is very much a residential area as much as it is commercial. We're a city of neighborhoods. It's kind of a Philadelphia tagline. You transition from neighborhood to neighborhood and don't even realize it's happening. But then all of a sudden, the culture shifts a little bit. So there's a neighborhood for all of your different interests. I saw, a question that I think maybe one of your thoughts for me was, what's great for a first-time home buyer? But there really isn't a good answer for that in terms of neighborhood, because it really depends on what that first-time home buyer is looking for. We get first-time home buyers who really want to be like in the heart of the city. So they'll go for a 1-bedroom condo, or we get first-time home buyers who are looking for that like sweet 2-story townhouse that might be more interested in like a neighborhood in South Philly, like a Passyunk Square neighborhood, where you're getting a little bit more price per square foot. And there's still like a cool restaurant scene down there, but it isn't quite like the heart of the city.
Gotcha.
And as far as, neighborhoods to highlight, so there's Ritten House Square, which is a park in the middle of Philadelphia, which is where our office is located. And it's also where I live, is, the center of Center City.
Right.
And
there's that really cool restaurant there, Park, P-A-R-C.
Yeah. Exactly.
I
a lot of restaurants surrounding it. That's a great restaurant.
Could not get a seat for some probably obvious reason. I had no idea.
It was probably one of those like really nice afternoons where everybody wants to sit outside and people watch. Yeah.
It was like it kind of looks like for New Yorkers, it kind of had the feel of like a Balthazar, New York, but with more outdoor seating and obviously more space.
Yeah. Well, Ritten House Square is known for being, one of the more upscale neighborhoods that has the highest price per square foot in the city in terms of housing.
What's the price per square foot in a high rise there, or high rise or mid rise building there?
It's so hard to say. I would say average, if you're averaging out from like new construction to things that have been around for a while, you're probably looking around, $700 a square foot, but that's total. I'm just throwing that out there because that's more of the higher end stuff anyway. Okay. I mean, I think the highest price per square foot you get in like the new luxury high rises are around $2,000 a square foot.
Okay. If you wanted to give you an idea, park, Ritten House Square, when I walked by it, it kind of felt like Union Square, but more homey and more local. And if you wanted to have one of those apartments that face the park, would you be looking at a similar price per square foot, around $700-800?
Well, the interesting thing about Ritten House Square is that a lot of those buildings are older.
Yeah,
you can get one of those and just need some updating, which to some people is very appealing and you're getting exactly what you want. But there are two, there's one building that's actually being in construction right now that's selling for over $2,000 a square foot for properties that face the park. So, there's kind of in that range, you can find different things.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, it was just, for those of you that know, the neighborhood that we're talking about, definitely, it's definitely a nice hot spot to go to. And I feel like it's a very attractive place to live in. You have a really awesome farmer's market. I guess it happens every weekend.
Yep.
And
every Saturday. Yep.
Every Saturday. Yeah. And it doesn't really feel, as touristy as, if you, let's just say, frequent the Flatiron District or Union Square area in New York City. So it has a really nice,
absolutely.
Yeah, a really nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I would say one of my favorite neighborhoods. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say just one of my favorite neighborhoods, if you go just west of there, is called Fiddler Square. And a lot of people like that neighborhood because it's just adjacent to Rittenhouse, but it's greener, a little bit more, neighborhoody. And, for New Yorkers, it would be, I get a lot of people who equated to similar to, what's in Tribeca, but where that green area is in Tribeca, where all the soccer fields are and stuff.
Okay, Hudson Square, Hudson Yards.
Yeah, kind of around there.
Yeah.
So you get that feel to it where you get a little bit more space, but you're still getting the amenities of the city.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. So, we want to kind of dive into today's topic here and what's obviously on everybody's mind. So from a local perspective on the ground up, what's the biggest change that you've seen during COVID-19 as far as your business is concerned, and also where the consumer mindset is?
So I think everybody's going to remember the first few weeks of this all kind of went down. But just to give your listeners background, is we in Pennsylvania are considered non-essential in real estate.
Sure.
So we are not allowed to have in-person showings. We're also not allowed to conduct business outside of our home as real estate agents, which makes it even more challenging than the general COVID challenges for real estate.
Sure. Similar to New York City, where you're not allowed to show or go outside to show homes.
Right, exactly. So look, we can't, if you open a lockbox for somebody, that's still not allowed. Mm-hmm. So we had to, really think outside the box. And I think there was that initial freak out moment, like, what are we going to do? But, our team just kind of went straight to the drawing board. All right, we've got this challenge ahead of us. Like I said, I like puzzles. What can we do to get around this?
Yeah.
So we went straight to virtual. We partnered with some great vendors that were willing to suit up, literally,
sure.
in protective gear, mm-hmm. and do the 3D tours of properties, floor plans, videos. We did the full suite of virtual showing type things for every property. And then including properties where people are living, we just made arrangements. And then for properties where there was interest, we worked out FaceTime tours with sellers. So it would be both agents on the selling and buy side, buyers and seller, on a FaceTime tour of the property. And that worked really well. The first time I did it, I was like, how's this going to go? We do everything in our industry to keep buyers and sellers apart. But they've gone really well. We've put about 6 properties under agreement just completely virtually in the past few weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. And I couldn't be prouder of my team for just the way that they've been able to pivot and do that. I think a lot of it had to do with empathy, realizing that no one right now wants to be sold to, but there are people that need to sell and there are people that need to buy. And how do we continue on and help those people while still respecting the situation that's going on and, just thinking outside the box for our clients.
Are these buyers that have come under agreement, did they ever have the chance to physically actually see the property before signing after the virtual tour, or did they just trust the whole virtual experience?
So a couple of them did not see the property in person, most of them, until they went under contract. Mm-hmm. And then within the contract, put in a provision that they could walk through the property.
Right.
So we made arrangements for that without physically being there. So maybe during the inspection time, the inspector would open the door and let them in, but we were not present.
So I suppose inspectors are considered essential, or they're allowed to work within the guidelines of what the essential means?
Yeah, some are, some have waivers. Mm-hmm. So those are the ones that we've made sure to partner with and get recommendations for our clients for.
That's great. So this perhaps may be the new wave of buying and selling real estate, is that they have to first trust the virtual walkthrough and mm-hmm. then have it in the provision of the contract that they can eventually go and access the unit.
Yeah. And, I've even had conversations with properties I'm going to be listing in the next 30 days or so. Mm-hmm. And Pennsylvania will likely become essential by the end of the month. We're fingers crossed. But even when we are essential, we're still entering a new way of showing real estate. And we've discussed with clients, especially where clients are living in the property, that we're going to do some sort of kind of screening. So they have to watch the 3D tour. They have to watch the video. maybe even a FaceTime tour prior to an in-person showing.
Got it. Yeah, they really have to be invested in the process to screen out the buyers that are actually really looking, or perhaps it's a neighbor that just wants to see the renovations of another.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the shopping days are gone. You do your shopping online.
Yes. Okay. So tell me a little bit about the buyer's mentality and seller's mentality. You know, we all know this. We've all been in the business long enough. Buyers love to read the news and only digest and take in information that really plays in their favor or thinking. And same with sellers. They love to read the news and they'll say, well, it looks like Wall Street Journal just put out an article that home prices on average are actually going up. And the sellers will automatically reject that news. So sellers will think we should actually raise the price. Where is it realistically? Have you seen the market go up or down? Have you had lowball offers from buyers reading the news and thinking this is the next great recession and their great opportunity? Or are the landlords maybe are fearful and are just slashing prices left and right? I mean, what are you seeing?
We're not seeing prices being slashed left and right. As I've been telling any of my buyer clients, there's great opportunity out there, and the opportunity isn't that you're going to get some lowball deal. The opportunity comes in that there is less competition.
Yeah.
And maybe you can take a breath when you actually look at a property as opposed to having to fight multiple offers. There are still multiple offer situations happening, but not as frequently as it would be, pre-COVID.
Gotcha.
So that's the opportunity. I recently had a client who was moving to Philadelphia from out of state call me about a property being listed, and he really didn't understand why it was still in the market. I was like, well, it's because not everybody is, and this is a $2 million property.
Uh-huh.
Not everybody is willing to jump feet first into a luxury home in this current situation.
Of course.
Also given the stock market volatility. Now, this is somebody who doesn't have to worry about that. So he got a great opportunity to buy something that is in high demand in our area and, is under contract. So, there are opportunities like that for buyers in the lower price points too. And again, some people have to move, whether it's they're being kicked out of a lease or whether they're moving in from out of state for a job. And, there are homes out there ready to go.
Right. There's a will, there's a way. And just in particular in residential real estate, the moral of the story is life goes on. And
absolutely,
whether it's a marriage they're expecting, it's unfortunately a divorce or somebody passing away, the life always just happens to keep moving. So just because there's COVID.
Which is why if Governor Wolf is listening, we are essential.
Correct. And we also have landlords that are just recently moved out that want to maybe lease their apartment and they need the money, right? They need the money to bring another home. So yeah, we are technically essential in that aspect. No, we are not a Fortune 5 company that, represents, thousands of investors. But in the aspect of, maybe there's a mom and pop landlord that just needs their place filled or sold. I mean, that's definitely essential in their lives. We do play an essential part in their lives. Let's talk a little bit about just the market itself, pre-COVID and where we are today. Do you have some statistics or numbers that you can talk about as far as like maybe where inventory is or maybe where the contract signings are so that we can see where the saturation of the market is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. When I pulled the data, I will say this before I tell you the data, I wasn't, not that I was shocked by it, but I don't feel it as much as the data shows. So when I pulled the information, I was curious, okay, what's the COVID data? Like, what is the data from March? I pulled from March 13th, which was our first kind of soft stay-at-home order, to today for what's gone under contract in Center City, Philadelphia. And it was this year, 274 properties. To put that into perspective, that is 50% down, 50% lower than in 2019, which there were 646 properties. So that's significant. But again, I was surprised by it only because I don't feel it as much. Yes, it feels like the summer, not like our spring market. But there are there is so much pent up demand out there going into the spring that I do have a feeling that the numbers will look very different in 2 months from now when we are allowed to go out and show property.
Do you think the numbers, you may not particularly feel it because you are so focused in an area that it has so much demand, like Ritten House Square. Perhaps
right.
Does that data also count areas like Manayunk or any of the outer city markets?
So this data specifically doesn't count like Manayunk. Okay. It does include, it's all of Center City. So from river to river, includes parts of South Philly, Fairmount area. Mm-hmm. We are seeing demand in like South Philadelphia, in other areas as well. And again, it's not, it's one of those things that someone said to me, like home is not always a luxury. Home is, home is more important now than ever. Mm-hmm. And especially, people who needed to move again, like I said, or right now, maybe people need to downsize because of housing expenses. Mm-hmm. Maybe people need to get larger properties because they're moving families in together.
Right.
There's all different reasons. And that I think is what driving this demand that was already, we went into 2020 with low inventory.
Okay. So speaking of lower inventory, is that just so much more demand because of businesses moving into the city, or is it just the general population just wanting to be more closer to the city? Or what do you think that is?
You mean just pre-COVID?
Correct.
Yeah, Philadelphia is a booming city. We have a ridiculous restaurant scene. I know it'll be back. It may take some time, but it'll be back. We have, it's a really good balance and quality of life. You can, look, the word affordable housing is very relative, so I don't want to sound pretentious by saying that, but affordable compared to most metropolitan cities. And you can live here, you can have green spaces, and also walk to work, which, most cities, there's your metropolitan downtown area and then like the suburbs, or in case of New York City, it's a giant metropolitan area, but you generally don't, it's a subway ride or, something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's a real luxury to live downtown Philadelphia and have that life balance of, for instance, my life, I walk to my office, my husband walks to his office. We're home at a reasonable hour to see our kids and make dinner. And, there isn't that 2-hour commute.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Thinking about post-COVID, what are your thoughts on this? Me, having interviewed various agents, they all have different varying opinions throughout the nation. But do you think post-COVID, some of the maybe accidental beneficiaries perhaps may potentially be areas like Manayunk, or maybe even a little bit outside of the city where they want maybe an extra home office or two, maybe they want a yard, maybe they want a little bit more separation from people and get away from the congested areas? Or do you think humans will have maybe a short-term memory and they still want to go to places like the park or be in the city and, just like what you said, walk to the office and, be within reasonable commuting distance and not waste time getting in and out of the city to and from their work? Or what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, consumer behavior and wants have certainly shifted, mm-hmm. But we're looking at a very condensed period of time. I had 3 people text me on Friday asking for short-term rentals for the summer in the suburbs with pools. I'm like, go to Airbnb. But I think, we're all kind of feeling that, being stuck inside right now, it's difficult. There are people for sure who were considering the suburbs at some point, and this is certainly going to be the push to that area. Yeah. I mean, but city living kind of will adapt. I don't really think that it'll be a dramatic shift from city to suburban area. Mm-hmm. I think that the way people build homes and the way people use their homes will be different. I think that when you're looking for a property, having a roof deck or having a little backyard space will be a more important amenity than maybe having that extra bedroom.
Right.
Or to your point, having some space for a home office may be more important. Again, I'm hoping that this is just a short period of time where, when I say short period, yeah, a year, 2 years, but again, short in the scheme of a lifetime.
Right. You think about from a historical standpoint, cities have been around for 100+ years and they've always stayed there. It's not like this has disappeared. So, even especially a city like Philly, the resiliency, I think, will outlast whatever short-term pandemic that we're experiencing.
Yeah. There was this really interesting article about how Philadelphia's residential area was affected by the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
And how there were more houses that moved away from the river. And that's why there was a big gap. Like, that's where Fairmount Park existed, because they wanted that space between the river and houses to prevent that contamination.
When you say river,
was just,
are you talking about the Camden
the Schuylkill
side or the school?
The Schuylkill River.
Schuylkill River, right.
Schuylkill. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just trying to get my bearings. But right. So yeah, that makes sense. Those things definitely do happen for a reason. So going back to some of your business and your listings right now, I believe you have about 9 units on the market, and those are representing on the seller side. Are those sellers just so confident of the market today because of the low housing, the housing shortage that you've had when we opened up the year, or are they just in desperate need to sell? I mean, what's going on there?
Well, I think we only had one seller who pulled their property off the market, and that's temporary. And just because it's a $4 million listing, and since we can't have in-person showings, they just said, let's pause it for a moment and rethink strategy, but that will be coming back on. The rest of our sellers that were already on the market, there's no benefit to taking it off. You're getting a lot of exposure. We're not showing it there's no in-person showings anyway, right. But at least you're getting the exposure in the market. People are home. They're looking at online. I was unsure of that strategy at first, especially for new listings, about do we keep them as coming soon or what do we do? But in every situation, putting it on as active right away has been to our sellers' benefit purely for exposure. Again, people are home, they're online, they're bored, they're looking. Yeah. The person I told you, right? The buyer I mentioned earlier, they only found this property and called me about it because it was put on active status and they saw the photos.
Mm-hmm. So if a new seller came up to you today and asked you, is it a good time to sell? I suppose your answer is there's no reason why you shouldn't list.
Yeah, especially right now. We have low inventory. I mean, our market data today for the greater Philadelphia area, our inventory is down 40% to a 2.5 month supply. That's crazy.
My goodness. Yeah, so you'll definitely stick out like a sore thumb when you list today, assuming that it's priced within the market's parameters.
Right, exactly.
Do you have any buyers right now or investors right now that are just clamoring up and saying, hey, you have to find me a deal because I know this is a big recession?
So I don't typically work with a lot of investors. Somebody in my team does. We're not seeing a ton of that yet. Yeah. I suspect we're going to start seeing that in the next few months. Once you see there are going to be people who have had their house or their investment property in the market for a while that need to get out. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be, I think you mentioned it earlier, but sellers' expectations, if they were on the market for a while, they're seeing the reality of pricing right now. Right. It doesn't mean the pricing is off. It means that they were priced wrong in the beginning. So there is, I think that's good for the market, but it's one way to get a seller to change their mind on price.
Right. Yeah. No, I can see that. Whenever the market is down, you have sharks that are always approaching us, and they want everything, 10 cents on the dollar. And sometimes it's not as prevalent as what, how much they see. An article came out recently in the Wall Street Journal. A lot of the sellers, this is a recession that is temporary, that's happened due to the fact of the virus. But if you think about what was happening 2 months ago, 3 months ago, most of these sellers were in pretty good financial condition. So it's not, it's not like things have changed that much. Their financial position has changed that much in the last 3 months. So right. Some of these investors are just reading the news reading the tabloids, seeing, blood in the water, thinking that this is a repeat of the Lehman crisis in 2008.
Right, exactly. It's so different. It couldn't be more different, honestly.
Yeah. And another thing that I think, listeners have to agree on or understand on is that the 2008 recession was definitely a housing-led recession. It was subprime loans. It was leverage. It was Bank of America and Lehman Brothers collapsing under financial pressure rather than what we are today, which is more of I guess you would say a virus-led recession with temporary unemployment numbers.
Yeah, I mean, we're able to be creative now and pivot and do things a little differently and still be sustainable in business. That other time, that was a lot more out of our control.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have to go to a client's house wearing a mask and sounding like Darth Vader, it is what it is. You do it, you soldier on and adapt.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fine. Listen, I don't want to. I know you're busy and you have to go, so I'm not going to keep you on here. But I gotta just real quickly some other questions. So you have such a successful team. What's your magic?
Our team culture and compatibility. I mean, we have an amazing team culture of helping each other out, of empathy, guiding our clients in that way too, guiding our clients by their needs and wants, not our own. And that has just really built a fantastic, my team is on every team call during this time. We have two hour-long meetings a week. And I know I'm excited to go to them and everyone shows up. So I assume that they like them too.
Good. Okay. When you hire new agents on your team, what do you look for in those new hires and how do you select them and to ensure that, what you just said, that the culture within your team stays intact?
Yeah. So we don't grow that much. And most of our new team members happen organically. Our last 2 team members, one was a family member of mine. And the other one was an agent from our former brokerage that I grew up in the business with. So having her join us was, a natural fit.
Right. And it's also hard to fire your own mom if she's working with you.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Just a final question, just to wrap up. When you decided to grow your team and increase your sales volume like most other teams want to do, is that something that was that your main goal, or is that something that kind of just happened just organically, naturally?
Yeah, again, that was organic. There are some days where I'm like, it'd be much easier to just be a single agent, but
yeah.
I love my team. And there's a certain aspect I love watching their businesses grow and knowing that I can be a part of that.
Uh-huh.
So, I'm very involved with my team's business in terms of helping them, reach their goals, helping them find out, figure out how they can use their authentic self to reach out to their own spheres to build their business. So that's a fun part of what we do as a team and how I get to interact with them.
Good. Yeah. It seems like a fun team to work in and operate in. I have my team myself, but everyone's a little bit different in the way they operate their business. So, and one final question: I'm not sure if you've gotten any more extra time during this COVID. If you did, how are you spending it, and are you doing anything fun indoors right now that try to entertain your family?
Not a ton of extra time because of homeschool and everything, but I will say
that's right.
Like my group of friends, we've been continuing on. We have an almost standing game night on the weekends.
Okay.
Where we've had Quizzo and Jeopardy and some other games, and it's just it's super cheesy and fun, and it's something we're just used to going out to dinners together. So this was a nice way to blow off some steam and do that. So I've been really enjoying that.
That's fun. That's fun. I think one industry that has gained some market share is the game night industry, right? So like the board game industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
and I'm such like a nerd like that, so bring it on.
Yeah, I bet. I went to Walmart the other day, and all the games were sold out. All the board games were sold out. So
really,
yeah, it's definitely a trend that we're seeing.
So are you saying that there's a second like market for like used games?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think there's a comeback of just these like indoor house board games and card games and stuff like that was probably maybe on the decline for like the last 10 years with all the video games and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, I have to plug. There's this. If you Google like Jeopardy templates, there's this awesome Jeopardy website where you can build your own Jeopardy games and then play them like on Zoom. And that was really fun. Like I did one for our team, and we had like quotable COVID was a category, and it was like songs about social distancing was another category. So make the best of it, have some fun.
That's so fun. I'm gonna have to look that up. Yeah, that's great. We also did on Zoom. Friends of mine, you could break out teams within Zoom and into their own rooms. That. Yeah, so we did trivia night on Zoom.
Oh, that's really cool. So each team got to like talk on their own and then come together at the end.
So if you're a host, you could, and there's 10 people, you could actually do 5 teams, 2 each, and then send those 2 teams into different rooms so they could talk privately. And then after a minute, you can get them back into the same Zoom room. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Technology. Amazing.
That you can do. Yes. People are getting creative. So everybody, I'm just going to wrap up. Thank you very much for listening. Again, follow Margaux on Instagram. I'll just repeat it again. Her team Instagram is On the Square Real Estate. And again, follow Margaux. Margaux is Margaux. So her Instagram, Margaux. Last name, Pelegrin, Pelegrin. Margaux Pelegrin on Instagram as well. Margaux, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Stay safe. Good luck out there. And hopefully hopefully we come out of this.
Hang in there. We'll see each other soon in a city downtown at Park. You can come visit. We'll have a glass of wine together. I would love
to actually get a table at Park next time.
I'll guarantee it. I know some people.
Okay. That's great. All right. It's on video, so it's a promise. All right. Thank you so much for your time again.
Thank you for having me, and talk to you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon.